Let's go! Batter up! We're taking the afternoon off. It's a beautiful day for a ball game, today. The fans are out to get a ticket or two. From Walla Walla, Washington to Kalamazoo. It's a beautiful day for a home run, but even a triple's okay. We're gonna cheer and boo and raise a hullabaloo at the ball game today.
Hey everybody, it's me, Rick Acosta, the Dodger card collector, coming to you with another video. Today is Monday, July 14th, and I thought I would make a video because I haven't made a video in a good 10 days. And I know we got a couple of big events coming up on YouTube that I kind of want to let take center stage. No one's going to watch my videos during Hobbypalooza or during the National the next few weeks. So I thought, let's get out a video as quickly as we can and do it on a Monday. So here I am. It's been a light day at work. Just came off a weekend. Mom was here this weekend, so she spent the weekend over here. And that's becoming quite an experience in a good way. For those of you that don't know, my mom is battling, I'm not afraid to say this, my mom is battling Alzheimer's. So it's gotten to the point where she needs to stay with me or my sister, and then we'll let her, stay alone at her place maybe once or twice every couple of weeks. So she comes over here and she sleeps in that bed back there, and we have a good time. We talk, and I'm really getting to know her. So this is an interesting time we're going through right now. So she was here all weekend, so I couldn't make a video. And every time she leaves, I always say I was going to throw her on the video, and I forget. So I'm going to try again in 2 weeks. I'll make it a really brief video. But today I just wanted to have an excuse to talk to you guys, share a story from the past, share a few baseball cards that are not from 1961. But I just thought I'd jump on and make a quick video and be really informal. So I wanted to talk to you, and I'll show this to you twice. This baseball here. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this baseball and just growing up in Southern California in the early 70s and having two baseball teams such as the Dodgers and the Angels. Now, I got this baseball, and maybe you guys had this when you guys played Little League Baseball, but in my day, we had what they called the pancake breakfast. And I guess it raised money for Little League. I'm not sure what it did, to be perfectly honest with you. But we had to knock door to door. We had to sell. We were given 20 or 30 tickets, and it was our job to sell them. And it was a different era back then. It wasn't like our parents took our 30 tickets and sold them to all their coworkers. We had to go door to door back then. We would knock on people's doors, and we would sell tickets to a pancake breakfast. And they were 50 cents each. And why do I remember they were 50 cents each? Because the coach of another team was telling his players to say when the price was 2 for $1, which means you could sell your tickets quicker. And I thought, wow, why didn't I think of that? So anyway, so they were 50 cents each. And if you sold 30 tickets, you would get a baseball. This specific baseball that I've had since I was 9 years old. So I've had this for over 50 years. And with this baseball, I never played with it. But for some reason, I decided to take it to Dodger Stadium one night. I got invited to a Dodger game. We sat down the third base line between third base and the left field foul pole. We got there early. My cousin and I took our mitts, our gloves, and I had my ball, and I had a pen. I've never ever had dove into the autographed baseball field. I still haven't really. I mean, I got several. Don't get me wrong. I have like maybe 20 or 30, but that's it. I really don't collect them. But that night, there was one player on the Dodgers named Terry Forster. When I think of Terry Forster now, I always think of David Letterman. I think David Letterman nicknamed Terry Forster a big tub of goo. When Forster was on the Dodgers, he was a signed as a closer in 1978, and he stuck around a couple of years. By the time he left the Dodgers, and I think he went to the Atlanta Braves, he was a lot heavier set. So I always remember that he was called A Tub of Goo by David Letterman. But he signed my baseball. At Dodger Stadium, getting autographs was extremely hard. I think it still is, to be honest with you. But back then, if you got there, it just seemed to be a pain in the butt to get an autograph at Dodger Stadium. So that was the only autograph I ever received at Dodger Stadium. But at Anaheim Stadium, that was a completely different story. And I talked to you guys about this a couple of weeks ago in a video where I showed off some Los Angeles Angels cards, and I brought up some memories of going to Angels games in the late 70s. My cousin was obsessed with Nolan Ryan. So literally every time Nolan Ryan pitched at Anaheim Stadium, we went. In the years 1978, 1979, 1980, I went to tons of Angel games. And going to Angel games were a lot different than going to a Dodger game. Dodger Stadium was always jam-packed, still is. Dodger Stadium really wouldn't allow you to move around in your seats before the game to try and get players' autographs. Anaheim Stadium was a lot different. You'd show up, and we would show up early. When I mean early, it was a 7:30 or 7 o'clock game. I'd get there. I'd be in the stadium at least at 6, while my cousin and my brother did other things in their car that teenagers did back then. I'll just say they were drinking, but they were doing more. But anyway, so they were having a good time in the car. I'd take my ticket and I would go into the stadium. And the stadium, they were having batting practice, and I would just go out there, take my ball, and I would just start getting players' autographs. And back then, like I said, the Angels, I remember some Angels, some Brewers, some Yankees, some Red Sox, all signed my ball. And I'd get really excited. The sad thing is looking at this ball. Like I said, I'll give you a better close-up view. A lot of these names have worn off, and to the point where I can barely remember who signed it. There are several names that I am going to show you who signed. And I wanted to talk to you about that, but I also wanted to talk to you about guys that didn't. So I think what I'll do, I'll show you. I'm going to show you their baseball card. Show you some baseball cards from the late 70s, late 60s. And from there, I'll give you some stories about guys who signed my autograph, or guys who autographed my baseball, and guys that didn't autograph my baseball. All right, so let's turn the camera around and we'll take a look at some cards. All right, my apologies for the texting noises you hear. That was a group of friends of mine and I discussing. I was playing Immaculate Grid this morning, and I never realized that Jim Thome played for the Baltimore Orioles. So the question was, name a player who played on both the Orioles and the White Sox. And I never guessed Jim Thome. I put somebody completely different. I think I put Steve Stone, the 70s pitcher. But the number one answer was Jim Thome, and I was like, I don't remember that. So excuse all the texting. You might have heard it during the monologue. It's just guys talking baseball. All right, so here's the ball. It's kind of sad that we've gotten to the point 50 years later where you could barely read the autographs. I see Dave Frost up here, the Angel pitcher, Terry Humphrey, the Angels backup catcher, Frank Tanana, Rich Dower, Don Ossie, Red Sox and Angels. Right there, you can't see it anymore. That's where Reggie signed. Long gone. That disappeared decades ago. A lot of ball players back then signed on ballpoint pens. Let's see, over here. Here was one that I loved in its day, Lance Parrish, Detroit Tigers. Billy Smith, I want to say he was a infielder for the Orioles. A lot of these I can't read anymore, unfortunately. If I flip it over, that could be Rance Smoleniks, I'm not sure. And then somewhere in here, so I told you there's Reggie. Where's, somewhere in here, I want to say around here, Robin Yount did sign this ball. I do remember meeting Robin Yount on the Brewers. So that's what this baseball looks like, you guys. This ball's 50 some odd years old. Everybody signed with a ballpoint pen back then. There's Jim Slayton. I want to say that's Willie Mays Aikens. Later went on to play with the Royals. There's some names on here, though, that I can't tell you who they are anymore. That's why the list the cards I'm going to show you, totally random ball players, totally random guys from the 70s who were part of my childhood. Randomness here. This baseball is the only foul ball I ever caught in 2010 at Target Field in Minneapolis. I was in town, and so were my Dodgers. And this ball was hit off the bat of Aaron Miles. And don't have any dreams there of some fancy sports center shot of some guy sticking out his glove and making a miraculous line drive catch. Nope. I was sitting on my chair. And literally, the ball came our way. The twin girls that were seated next to me got out of the way. Everybody lunged. Somehow I felt it land on my lap, and I took it. And I raised my arm just like anybody else, stood up, raised my arm, and people started applauding. And then somebody yelled out, "Oh, a Dodger fan got it." I'll never forget. I got to see if I have the picture. Maybe I'll throw it on at the end of the video. The thing when you're making YouTube videos, you guys, and I think a lot of you guys will associate this, a lot of memories start coming back when you start talking about certain things. So even just this, all of a sudden I go, wait a minute, I have a photo of this, of me at Target Field. But that is a ball hit off of Aaron Miles. All right, let's start off with the guy who started this thing off. This was the first signature I got on this baseball. That was Terry Forster. By this point, he had had a good career with the White Sox and 1 year with the Pirates. Dodgers signed him as a closer, and he was very helpful. I think he played 3 or 4 yees before he moved on to the Atlanta Braves. And this was his first card on the Dodgers. You could tell his cap is airbrushed. Definitely a look. And then I'm assuming I think he could be in a Pirates uniform. I'm not sure. But that is Terry Forster. Now, before I get into the other guys that signed the ball and the guys that didn't sign the ball, because they have some interesting stories, I want to share with you an honorable mention of someone who didn't sign the ball. Not his fault. I was too chicken to go up to him. And that was Tommy John. I was at a Dodger game. I was going to the restroom. The restroom was right next to the Dodger bullpen. And Tommy John just happened to be walking out of the bullpen. He was in a cast. He was having his infamous Tommy John surgery. He'd already had it. He was in a cast, and he was walking with a Dodger trainer. And he was smiling at somebody and signing an autograph, and I was just so terrified I didn't go up to him. That was my first encounter of a ball player in a uniform. And that was Tommy John. All right. So I think what I'll do before I start showing you guys that signed the ball, let's look at guys that didn't sign the ball. Okay, so these 3 guys I vividly remember rejecting me in signing my baseball. All 3 of these were at Anaheim Stadium. They probably weren't at the same game. But on the left is Bucky Dent, featured in his 1979 Topps card. And I was walking behind the Yankee dugout. This shows you how freely things were at Anaheim Stadium in the 70s. Before the game, I'm walking behind the Yankee dugout. I said, Bucky was right there. I said, Bucky, sign my ball. I don't know if I said please. Let's just say I said please. Bucky, please sign my ball. And he said, no, I can't. And I said, come on. And he said, I told you, no. So I moved on. I will say at that game, I again went up to the Yankee dugout, and Gary Thomason, who's sitting here on the right in his 1979 Topps Yankees card, our eyes locked up. I showed him my ball, and he immediately nodded no. So he didn't sign it either. Now, as a grown-up now, the child in me didn't understand. As a grown-up now, you know what? I think the game was going to start like in just a couple of minutes, and I have a feeling, baseball players might have been restricted on what time they signed autographs at before games, but he wasn't going to sign autographs at that point. Now, the guy in the middle, this one kind of broke my heart, and that's Willie Davis. He's featured here in his 1969 Topps card, but this event happened somewhere in 1975, 6, or 7. No, either 76 or 77, potentially 78. Willie Davis was on the Angels at this point, and I was behind the Angel dugout before the game. Willie Davis was standing with his back towards me in front of the Angel dugout. I think they were playing pepper or something. He had a bat in his hand. He was hitting grounders to people or something along those lines. And I said, Willie, sign my ball. And he turned around and looked at me, and he looked at me and then kept looking forward. And then I said, come on. And then he said no. So then I kind of held up my ball again. I go, Willie, I have a ball. And he just looked at me and goes, yeah, I know. And he turned again, looked towards the infield, and that was the end of that. But these were three guys that refused to sign my ball, but they did come with a story. And I have to admit, that baseball has some autographs on there that I no longer remember who signed or what the story was behind it. I just asked for their autographs because they were baseball players. All right, let's take a look at who did sign my baseball. When I look at these autographs and look at these cards, it just does remind me, superstars really weren't signing baseballs at this point. Not that these ball players weren't good ball players, because all three of these guys played. Dave LaRoche on the Angels and the Indians, he was a closer back in his day. Very good ball player. Rich Dower played second base for the Orioles for several years. He's featured in his 1980 Topps card. And then on the right, Dave Rozema came up around the same time as Mark Fidrich, probably a little after him, but had a couple of good years, featured in his 1978 card, just like Dave LaRoche. And I'm trying to read his card here, and he went 13-7 with the Tigers in his rookie year. Don't know what he did much after that, but I know he played for a few years with the Tigers. But again, solid ball players. The other thing I noticed is that I got very few hitters to sign my ball. And maybe it's because pitchers pitch every third or fourth day back then. Maybe they had a little bit more access to or time to sign baseballs. Hitters had to think about playing in the game that night. On the left, I have, from his 1974 Topps card, Jim Slayton. The reason I am including this is just because I always liked this card. I remember getting his autograph, and I remember liking this card, and I want to say this photo was taken at Anaheim Stadium. Just love the photo, just reminded me of card collecting as a kid. In the center, Frank Tanana, Angels fireballer. While Nolan Ryan got most of the attention, Frank Tanana, 1975, 1976, 77, maybe even 78, was getting a lot of attention for the Angels before his arm and his elbow destructed, and he had to reinvent himself. He was a fireballer. He was a fastball pitcher. He had some good stuff, and eventually, by the late 70s, his arm burned out. I think he had some type of elbow surgery, and the Angels and the Red Sox were making a lot of trades back then. Guys like Frank Tanana, like Carney Lansford, Rick Miller, Fred Lynn, Butch Hobson, Jerry Remy. A lot of guys traded teams back then, and Frank Tanana was one of them. But eventually, he had a long career. Played for Texas, played for Detroit. And speaking of Detroit, I was a big fan of this guy when I was a kid, Lance Parrish. How or why he signed my ball, I have no clue. I really don't. He was just there. I was there. near the backstop before a game, and he was willing to sign autographs, and I got him. And I was a real big fan of his. I think he later went on to sign a big free agent deal with the Phillies, and he had a really good career. Doesn't get that much attention in talks these days. And by this point, this is only his third year, and he hasn't even really played a full career yet, or a full year at this point. In 1978, he only played like half the games. But he had a very good career with the Tigers, and then later on with the Phillies. All right, let's see who else we got here. We got some bigger names coming up, I think. Here's another why this guy was out signing autographs. I think, back then, Robin Yount was just a regular guy, 4 or 5 years. I didn't look at him as a Hall of Fame player. I don't even know if I viewed him as an all-star player at this point, in 1978, 1979. But again, I was near the Brewers dugout before a game. He was signing autographs, and all I can tell you about most of these autographs is he got the ball. I gave him the ball. He signed it. He gave it back. I said thank you. End of story. But he had an incredible career with the Milwaukee Brewers. 3,000 hits, and he was a member of the 1982 American League Championship team. Won a couple of Gold Gloves, I believe, at short and the outfield. I remember him making an incredible catch in center field. It was the last out of a no-hitter, and I want to say it was Juan Nieves of the Brewers who threw a no-hitter against the Orioles. Ball was hit in the center field, and Robin Yount made a diving catch for it. I also remember his 3,000th hit when he got it, and Bob Uecker going crazy. The Brewers bench emptying out, led by Paul Molitor and Jim Gantner. They hugged him first, and the rest of the team mobbed him. Great player, great guy. Grew up out here in LA, went to high school in Woodland Hills, Taft High School, I think. Doesn't hang out here too much. I know that he was a coach at one point years ago for the Arizona Diamondbacks. Don't know what he's up to now, but big fan, and that's Robin Yount. Now, the last guy on here, saved the best for last, and that was Reggie Jackson. And this thing was a pain in the butt. I did not get this autograph at a card show or at some speaking event. I got it at an Angel game in Anaheim Stadium. Somewhere, I think, 78 or 1979. And all I remember was this gentleman went out to sign autographs in his Yankee uniform. It looked, if I saw a photo today, maybe it'd be different. But in my mind, there were hundreds of people trying to get this guy's autograph. He was so popular, still is. And the Yankees at that time were the world champions, and Reggie Jackson was arguably the most famous ball player around at this point. Kind of the way we look now at Shohei Ohtani or Aaron Judge. But back then, this guy was a rock star, and he was on television, and he had his own television show, and he had his own candy bar, and it just seemed like everybody wanted to meet him that day. And when I met guys like Robin Yount or Lance Parrish, maybe there were at the most 1 or 2 people trying to get his autograph. With Reggie, I had to try for a very long time. By very long time, I have to think about it. Probably maybe took 15, 20 minutes. I won't say hours because that's a lie, because there was a baseball game to be played. But I just kept pushing my way forward without a pen, you guys. But Reggie did have his own pen. I think he was that type of guy. And I always remember there was a guy in front of me. He was trying to be nice, and he was saying, "Give me the ball. I'll see if I can hand it to him." And as I got closer, and it wasn't working, so he gave up. Somehow I kept pushing. Somehow I got into the front row after what felt like an eternity, and I sat there with my ball. But there were it felt like 10 other kids had their hands out. They had their balls out, and Reggie, like I say, love him or hate him, he really stood out there, wanted to meet everybody. He sat there and just kept taking ball after ball after ball. Somehow he got my ball. Somehow he gave it back to me. And I'm smiling right now just thinking about it. I think only the meeting Sandy Koufax was probably was a bigger event, but as a child, this was like the first big event where I really met someone famous. And I just remember being so excited and just going back to my seats. My cousins were there, my brother was there, several family members were there. And when I came up to them, I said, being the obnoxious 13, 14-year-old boy, I just went up and I'm like, Reggie Jackson, you guys. And I showing them the ball, and they're like, what? And they're all looking at it. It felt like they wanted to look at the ball the entire game. And it was just so exciting. It's sad now to think that he signed on a ballpoint pen, and the autograph faded, but the memory never faded. And to this day, and even as I'm telling you guys this story, I'm smiling. And it's a memory of mine every time I see Reggie Jackson. He's killed my Dodgers a lot with the A's and with the Yankees, but great ball player, iconic ball player. And it was for those few minutes, at least I was connected to the man. So totally awesome. All right, you guys, I think you've heard me talk long enough. If you stuck around this long, thanks so much for hanging out with me today. And we'll talk to you next time. Take care.
It's a beautiful day for a ball game, for a ball